Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this virtual conference, this virtual roundtable. Joining me today are amazing guests that I'm very happy to introduce, and I'll let them introduce themselves shortly after. Joining me are Adam Dubé.
Sorry to interrupt you, Maxime.
Sorry.
I think everyone else can hear you. I cannot. So I'm going to leave and come back in and see if it fixes it. Sorry, everybody. Who knows why?
All right. Take care, Adam. So joining us was Adam Dubé, Judith Brisson from Canada, as well as Adam Dubé, and José Luis Vasquez Poletti from Spain. So it's wonderful to have you on board. Maybe I'll go very quickly on how things are going to unfold. So the aim today is really to have an open discussion about using video games in very different eras or areas of teaching. And so we have experts that are coming from very different in various fields. And the idea here is that we're going to go on and have very open discussion. And if you have questions, you can now use the Q&A section to ask them. We will be moderating these questions in the last 10 minutes of this roundtable. Hopefully, all will be well with the connections. I'm confident that Adam will be able to join at a given time. But first, I'd like to let Judith Brisson introduce herself. No. I'm throwing you the ball, Judith. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here today. So, hi, I'm Judith Brisson. I'm a history teacher in high school in Quebec. In 2020, so last year was the first time I used video games in class, though in a pre-pandemic situation. It was quite a challenge because I've never played games before. So I had to learn how to play video game. It took a lot of time, but I'm really proud of the project that my students had the occasion to play. So I used the Discovery Tour Ancient Greece for my whole chapter on Ancient Greece. So roughly 15 classes. So the first time I've heard about the Discovery Tour, is in a teachers conference. And overall, I had to build all the teaching materials. So it took about 68 hours and learning how to play roughly 75 hours total. So this is why I think it's really important that with games, we have to provide some guides and some teaching materials if we want other teachers to use this new medium in class and make school fun. This is it.
Thank you so much. Adam is
I can
back.
hear everybody now. No idea why that happened. Sorry, everybody in the audience.
Very happy that you're here. I'll then José Luis, please, if you can introduce yourself. I think a lot of people are very curious to know what you're up to.
Oh wow! Well, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. I mean, for me, it's a achievement unlocked if we speak in terms of video games, to speak in a video games festival, and in particular to be in this roundtable with what I can say that we are now good friends and working in very interesting directions. Well, I'm a associate professor in computer science, and in particular, I am from Universidad Complutense de Madrid. So, I mean, I am some hours ahead of you. Basically, what I do with video games at my teaching is, for instance, creating some transmedia experiences for my cybersecurity students, or even create some puzzles for my hometown when we were celebrating some historical events. Also, considering the Discovery Tour, which is something that united us here, well, I can say that we have an ongoing collaboration with a PhD student, Lara Rangil. I hope that she is listening right now. She's doing a great job to create a student books for using Discovery Tour for 12 to 14 years old schoolers in Spain. Return to transmedia, yes, I'm using video games in my teaching For instance, doing some distance media experiences using, for instance, Watch Dogs, letting my students feel like they are characters of the video game while going into the lab. I don't know how many university professors go to the school, to the teachings or lab with a hidden blade. I am one of them, of course.
You're a very courageous professor for sure, Jose Luis. Thank you
Who
for
knows?
joining us. And now with us also Adam Dubé, also from Montreal. Thank you, Adam, for joining us.
Well, it's great to be here. And so I'm an associate professor at McGill University in the Faculty of Education. And I do work on educational technology, specifically with educational games. And I've got a whole team of graduate students. And we look at things like what makes an effective educational game. We also look at how can we help parents and teachers find quality educational games, say, for example, in the Apple App Store. By showing them like what makes a game of high quality and how to spot that in games that they're going to give to their students or give to their children, say, for example, for parents. I've had students that have designed educational games themselves. They've worked with companies, developed them. They've put them out in the App Store. We test their effectiveness. So we engage in that. And with the Discovery Tour, we've got two of my students right now, Robin Sharma and Chu Zhu, are currently developing a teacher guide for the Discovery Tour games. And the idea here is to help teachers know where to start when using the Discovery Tour in their classrooms, answering some of the big questions for them. And for that teacher that's like, oh, this is really interesting, but exactly what am I supposed to do with it? How do I use it? What is this experience all about? And so they're developing a guide. We're developing a guide with Maxime and the team at Ubisoft to put that out there. So that's what kind of joins me with the rest of the group.
Yes, thank you. I think I'll take the opportunity to salute them as well. As we had to limit the amount of people that could be in this room today, in this virtual room at least today. But they've been doing tremendous work. So I'm very happy that we can talk about the different ways that we can craft solutions to try and support the using of video games into an educational purpose. So I think last we spoke on the four of us, we had so many topics that we have to choose from to make sure that we get there in time. I want to start by asking the toughest question: is how and can we measure the success of using video games for teaching purposes? So any of you want to jump and start right in? I know it's a big one, but I think it's the right question to ask when talking about the use of video games in a formal learning method.
Yeah, so I'll jump right in. So in terms, if you're asking about measurement and you're asking the psychologist, it was like, yes, we can measure things. So can we measure and how do we measure the success of games for learning? And so it's like, yes, we certainly can measure it. The question is, what counts as success when we're talking about using video games for learning? You can say that, well, a game could be successful if it engages student with content. So I do a bunch of research on math games. Children really dislike math. So it could be successful if it just makes them engaged with the content and willing to persevere. So that can be a success. You can talk about success in terms of, well, does that actually improve their understanding, right? So say, for example, with the Assassin's Creed series, it's like, okay, can you make the student better understand a period in ancient Egypt? Can you make them think like a historian by playing the game? So that's increasing an understanding. And that could be a way of thinking about success. And then you can measure that with like standardized tests and interviews with kids. And then you could also talk about, does it make them, you could talk about success in terms of, does it make them get a positive experience and emotion towards the content, right? So like this emotional response, can you make them like history more, say, for example, or could you make them like things like math, which is a little bit harder, I would argue, than say history, which is inherently interesting because it's got people in it. Sort of thing. So, but in terms of can you measure in success, it's like, okay, it depends on like what do you count as success? And I'd say those are the three things that I tend to look at and we tend to measure and research tends to measure when you're saying are games effective and are they successful?
Thank you. Yeah, it's it is. Are we are we able to say at this point that the field is growing, is at its peak, or it's in its early form of measuring of all these aspects? Is the best in front of us, or are we already in the good process of being able to measure these outcomes, in your opinion, Adam?
I would say in terms of measuring learning outcomes, we're much more established with measuring learning outcomes, because we've been doing that as educators and as researchers for practically 100 years. Our students increasing their understanding. So there we've got a good footing. But what's more difficult is about engagement as well as emotions, this affective response. That's the more difficult challenge here. It's how do you accurately measure whether or not a game actually captures a child's attention or a learner's attention? Do they find it interesting and fun? I think any game designer would share this difficult challenge of how can you tell if someone's enjoying an experience? But more recently, there's been a lot of focus put on this, more emphasis, and I think a lot of effort's been put into measuring this sort of emotional response, measuring engagement during these type of experiences. So that's where we're coming into, I'd say, that's the developing space, and we're getting some really great tools right now to do that. And we see a lot of work being produced in that space, and especially in emotions in the past 10 years. Yeah.
Definitely. I think, Judith, you have probably your own way of measuring how engagement happens. I think you probably use facial recognition, but on a human scale, when your students get into your classroom. I think I saw it firsthand in your classroom, but I think you have a much broader experience than I have.
Well, for sure, since the kids, my students, have 12, 13 years old, it's quite different. And it was fun because even though, like Adam said, we can't really grade effectiveness, still, when I see my students running in class and say, yes, we're in history, so that's really cool. I know that I succeeded, in something, because I really think that school, it has to be fun. If we want kids to actually learn, if they get involved in their learning, and if they have fun, well, then they remember things. And I think why not use video games? This generation is growing with video games, and they know more about it, well, than I did. And why not use what they actually like and use it in a classroom context? And now they can play video games to learn while having fun. So then I think that they will learn, and they are learning, but still they like it. So they look forward to the history class. And when the bell rings, well, a lot of my students just come to me and say, oh my God, it's already over. So I think it works. It's a lot of work, but I think it's a wonderful way just to change teaching, just to I don't know, step out of the traditional way, and get the kids more involved into their learning. They'll be stimulated, and then they will remember it. Because even though my project, without all the modifications I had to do because of the sanitary measures this year, those students came back to me this year and said, oh my God, I remember, and they said oh, it was so fun. And between them, they were talking about the different missions they had to accomplish with the Discovery Tour, and it was so fun. So throughout the project, I made it fun. They had this mission booklet, and afterwards, they had formative, but still I'm a teacher, so I had to grade them. But at the end of the chapter, the grades on the exam, they were way higher than the previous years. And, some of the students just came to me and told me that since they played the game, and, they got the chance to interact with the new world, with the ancient Greece, well, then, they remember more, and they have to study less. So,
well, that's at least two ways of being able to measure success. And I think I remember just seeing their smiles, and I think this is something that I see in pretty much any classroom when when I'm invited, or this is the feedback that we receive from most teachers, is that people arrive on time and they leave when the bell rings, if they want to leave.
We have to kick them out.
So that's using the Discovery Tour itself, and then so in terms of measuring the use of video games, is it very different, Jose Luis, in a context of computer engineering at the university level? Is this something that you can relate to also?
Well, I mean, you said right. Engagement is the word, totally. Video games provide a direct inspiration to our students. From labs where my students need to create a Trojan and use it to hack the Abstergo servers. Yeah, my teaching is like that. And then we move to final year projects like the one that 3 of my students just defended, which is hacking of the temperature pressure monitoring system that is embedded in every vehicle tire. Basically, they were creating a device for hacking cars like they saw in Watch Dogs. And this project was really interesting because it was a kind of shout out to the industry, because these protocols, which are mandatory since 2014, are not encrypted. So everybody, like my students, of course, but they're not bad people, let's say that, could mess with your onboard computer and make your Tesla car, for instance, go off-road.
That is scary. So social awareness coming from using the video game, or from the at least being close to that video game, which brings that idea forward that digital information is something that's quite valuable, and that can be an interesting point for students to then go on and learn to program, and do things that you would do anyways into your program, but there the engagement is much more interesting from your perspective. So that's pretty interesting. Did any of you witness any difference between boy or girl engagement into the classroom, into using video games? And you can jump ahead. The one
Well, I did.
most comfortable.
Well, I did. We know that a lot of researchers say that our education system tends to satisfy more the learning needs of girls. So with the use of the video games, it was fun because now the boys tend to play more. So while I was explaining the project, the boys were really, really happy. And they were the ones that knew more about the game and how it would work. So during the project, when I made the teams, I tried to pair boy and girl. Well, there are girls who are gaming, but there are less of them. So it was fun because now the boys got engaged, and they were the ones that were, showing others how it worked and how to do. And when they were working, well, most of the times they were like collaborating. And when the boy was teaching the girl how to play and which keys to press, when the girl, she was there and she was completing the mission booklet, and so they helped each other. So that was fun. And yeah, because the more traditional ways to teach, while some researchers say that it's more for the girls, it's easier for the girls. So this time, like, the boys were able just to be themselves and have fun and game in class.
So from your perspective, the role of the teacher there is maybe to help to balance these aspects and use the best that's coming from the video game for the teaching that you want to provide, and balance it if you see that there's this disbalancement that you're talking about, so that you can make sure that if it's teamwork that is involved, well, at least that it leverages the talents of everyone at the same time.
Well, I tried. It's not easy because, I have classrooms of 30, 32 students. So trying to pair them, it's not always easy. And you have you have to make sure that they get along together. But it's fun because they get to know somebody else and they get to see the good side, the qualities, and how the other one can help in a different context.
And so maybe to clarify and help here to contextualize, the context is that you are using the Discovery Tour, which is a history game or a history learning game that, in your case, that talks about ancient Greece. And the idea is that, if my memory is correct, is that you are pairing students together to both play the game. But they also do extra work from outside the game, where they're paired together to find answers and reflect and try to discuss together about the things that they've seen, which are in the aim of the regular history that you're trying to do in the classroom.
Yes, that's right. So for the whole chapter in ancient Greece, they were paired and they had to accomplish some missions throughout the ancient Greece Discovery Tour. And so they had to complete a mission booklet. And afterwards, by teams, once the mission was accomplished, they had a formative to see what they actually learned and to see if they actually answered correctly their mission booklet. And afterwards, they had to use what they found for information for the other paperwork that they had to do for more to prepare them for the exam. So together they were trying and they were building all the notions, and they had to learn for the exam at the end of the chapter.
And Maxime, I'd just like to jump in with the idea of engaging girls or boys with games. One of the things that what I think we want to think about here is the type of games that we're talking about, right? So in terms of player base, like we know that girls are just as likely to play games as boys, but they sometimes play different games. So say, for example, the Assassin's Creed series might have a larger audience of boys. I'm not quite sure, but the more third-person action-style game on a console or PC might have a larger male audience, larger boy audience, whereas young girls are just as likely or more likely, and women are just as likely or more likely to play games, say, on mobile devices, on different types of PC games, browser-based games. So, both boys and girls are gamers. And in terms of engaging kids with games, it's just we see that within research, like games can engage girls just as much as boys, but it depends on the type that you're choosing, right? So here it's like, okay, well, there's the Assassin's Creed games that might really capture the boys in the class because they play it, they're familiar with it, they're familiar with the type of game that it is. But if you have another type of game, perhaps it's going to engage the girls in the class because that's the play style that they're more likely to be familiar with, or the games that they play in their spare time. And so, from the research standpoint, they can engage both boys and girls, but that's where it comes down to the type of game that we're talking about.
But it was fun because once I told them that I've never played before and that I was really, really bad, we just had fun. So the girls were more apt to try, knowing that they can't die and there's no blood and no violence. So that helped also. But seeing the teacher that I had so much trouble playing at first, we were just having fun. So it helped. So also the boys, like you said, since they know more about the game, well, they were proud to show me something, and show the other girls too.
Judith, every student wants to be better than the master.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Talking about master or masterly, I think something that you both mentioned, or at least that was implied into your message, is that there's a lot of work that needs to be done from the teaching perspective to be aware of the content that's there, to be aware of that diversity of games, of the usage of these games, depending on if it depends on gender, for instance. So what can either companies do, or what can institutions do to support teachers who would want to start like Judith did from scratch? Or what are the best resources that can be pushed forward or that can be used to and how are they impactful, into your opinion, in having a successful use of video game in a classroom? Maybe Adam, if you
Yeah,
wanna,
I'll start.
I can
I'll
throw,
start.
I'll throw you that ball, because we've been working very closely in the last couple
Yeah.
of months on curriculum projects.
Yeah, and so, I think one of the biggest things that, say, if you're looking at from a school level and helping teachers, I think, as we go forward, more and more teachers will have been gamers and been exposed to it, right? So that's going to be a medium that they're going to be familiar with, but it doesn't necessarily mean they know how to use them in their classrooms. And so, because they've never used it as a teaching tool specifically. And so one of the things that's really important is what's called professional development. And this can happen, say, for example, when teachers are learning at the undergraduate level at universities. We can include games for learning as part of their training. And this is a broader focus on trying to help teachers use technology more in their classrooms, more modern technologies, not just relying on what's been always available, books, paper, pencil, what's right in front of you. So improving teacher training at the university level is one of the big things. And that's something that I've been doing with my classes. I have courses for current teachers that are teachers in training, and we have classes on educational games, how to use them in the classroom, strategies, what they're useful for, what makes them effective or not. And another thing that needs to be done is professional development. And this is like the same type of lessons, but then having workshops for teachers that are held at their school when they are available. Like, say, for example, on a PD day where the teacher has the day off, not really, but, like a day to learn about a new skill or a new idea, to share ideas, and having that and providing professional development on the use of games in classrooms. And that's another big piece that schools could do to help teachers do this. And the last thing is things like, from a company standpoint, for people that are making these games, is creating materials that tell teachers that are really interested in doing this, but giving them insights about how to use it, like creating a guide, which is kind of the impetus behind the whole project that we're engaged in. It's like a teacher says, like, this is great, and maybe they don't have the dozens, hundreds of hours, or not have, but maybe they just like they can't. The commitment to putting in 100 hours in developing their own guide, like Judith did, it's just like, nope, just too much, right? So they just like, I can't do that. And so, but having a guide so that they don't have to do that initial step could really increase, how much we take advantage of games in classrooms and as a tool. So, like, I think those are the things: teaching at university, professional development for teachers that the schools give, and then companies actually creating materials for teachers to really make it less of a barrier for them. Because teachers are, they're talk to Judith and Jose Luis, like they're using games in their classrooms in such innovative ways, right? So it's like the people want to do this. If they're just given a little bit of help, I think we'll see a lot more teachers doing it.
I do hope that this is something that from the company standpoint will be able to support more, that other companies will jump in as well, because there seems to be a lot of individuals that are putting the effort, like Judith did, and she did it on her own private initiative, and because this was not funded also publicly, then there's probably a lot of people out there that are doing this precise work that is duplicated again and again. So thankfully we'll see more guides coming up from various companies. I'm curious, Jose Luis, what is for you? What was for you this spark in wanting to invest time and efforts in creating one of these guides for Spain, for using a product like the Discover Tour?
Well, it all began with your visit to our university. I mean, we had the pleasure and the honor to host Maxime at the Universidad Complutense de Madrid to perform the official national presentation of the Discovery Tour. And it's something that is still in our DNA at our university. So this was the spark. Later on, I was contacted by a PhD student, this Lara Rangel, who wanted to do something related to Discovery Tour that could be used in the classroom. And we were analyzing all the, let's say, the viscosity of the environment in the Spanish teaching system. Because if you switch countries, you will see that no teaching system is alike. So instead of thinking large at this point, we wanted to create a specific element for our teachers, because teachers in Spain, at least, don't have much time. Well, Judith, I think that you don't have much time as well. Yeah. Something like a first world problems right now. So providing them some kind of guide that would help them use the Discovery Tour or any kind of other video games, but at this point we center on Discovery Tour, was key for us. And initially, we wanted to perform this for students, as I said before, from 12 to 14 years old. But later, we have been considering opening this range even for families, to make family experience to share in video games in a safe space. Bring some kind of activities that go beyond the classroom, like the ones that you did is organizing, and give these ideas to our teachers. I think that they will find them very useful.
Definitely, and maybe one thing that this wasn't meant to be an official presentation for Discovery Tour itself, but maybe one question that can be answered is also that these games compared to Assassin's Creed have a lower age rating. So, for instance, with the latest Discovery Tour in Greece, in Europe, it is rated. If my memory is correct, it is rated 7+, at least for Spain, whereas as it is rated teens for North America, for Canada and US, for instance. So that's one barrier where video games and products can try to aim at being more inclusive for age and be used as a safe space, as you mentioned, to be played inside the family. It's what I do at home. So go ahead.
That's the point. In fact, I'm doing it with my son. I use the Discovery Tour with my son, and then we create some experiences out of the sitting room where we have the console, and perform some activities like drawing or looking for information for the different essays that he has to do at the school. So we can say that some of the images from the Discovery Tour had entered my son's classroom thanks to these experiences.
I'm sure they had a lot of fun. At least from the pictures you shared, I think it felt like they were very proud to learn and talk about history. I think that's also something, Judith, that you mentioned when we had the earlier discussions that some people had a consequence outside of school.
Some of the parents wrote to me to say how they were really impressed by when they get together at supper time and everybody talks about their day, and they were really they were excited to see that their kid was actually talking about their history class and the way that they were gaming and having fun while learning. So a lot of those parents just wrote to me, and they wanted to know what was the name of the game so they can buy it for Christmas or for their birthday. And so they could play together. Some of the kids also came to me, and they told me that it was fun because after so it was a time to be all the family together, and they had the occasion to show them what they've learned, and it's a way also to study. So I think it's cool.
As a teacher, it's it feels very rewarding to receive these kind of feedback. I think that's more than just having the good grades, but it's having maybe a lasting impact is always something I think that we are looking for.
It's fun, and I keep receiving those mails. Even though this year I had to make some changes to my project because of the pandemic, still, the kids come to me and say, "Oh, it was still really fun," and then we want to know what game it is. We want to buy it, continue to play it at home. So it's fun, So, yeah, I keep working on this project.
Well, I hope you can. If my memory is correct, you also have been traveling a lot previously as a history teacher with your students. Yeah, that luxury, and then I guess that changed quite a lot with the with the pandemic. But now that you are visiting the virtual locations that you would still visit, and that you are going to visit with the students, I guess that's going to be a very different preparation for you as a teacher, to first visualize it and make the students visit the locations like the Acropolis in Athens before they actually can travel to it. So
We were
that must
supposed
be
to
something
go
very
this.
interesting for next year
Yeah.
or upcoming years.
Yeah, for sure. We were supposed to go this year, so with the students that played the video game in class last year, pre-pandemic, well, with them, what a call of them, well, this year we were supposed to see it live and go to Athens, but, change of plans. Yeah. Hopefully, we'll go back to something more normal next year.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. On your perspective, Adam, and do you think games like these ones can be meaningful for family experiences, or are they appropriate, or they're well targeted, when knowing that there are zillions of games that exist outside that are available to them? How can they navigate through that as families?
Well, in terms of families, so 100% yes, that these games can be meaningful experiences at home. Parents playing games alongside their kids for learning purposes, whether it's like the discovery tours, and where the child is playing or watching their parent play. What the real key there is, say, even if your child's not a gamer and you're a gamer, right? Or your kid's the gamer and you're not. Like, the real key is having a conversation around the game and around the topic with your kid. And that's the big thing. Is like, a lot of parents, they may not themselves be big gamers. So how do they use it? It's like, well, just use the game and the experience and your child's excitement in the experience as a way to have a conversation. And you'll be surprised, by you showing interest, by you having a conversation with your child on the topic, they're going to go like, oh, like, this is something worthwhile. I'm interested. You see my interest, and that's going to, help them. And then you can ask questions, ask them to, ask them questions about the game, ask them questions about what they think is happening in the game, just have a conversation with them. And what's been shown is that, having conversations, whether it's about a game or about a school day, say, for example, at the dinner table, parents having conversations with their kids about what they're learning really helps engage children with education, with their learning experiences, showing that the parents are invested. Those dinner table conversations really matter. And so instead of having conversation around the dinner table, have it in front of the television, while you're playing the game together. It's like, so, but I think that's one of the things that I would say for parents about how to use games. And if it's other games, like a mobile learning game that your kid's playing, just don't have them go off in the corner and play it. I know that's how we all do it. It's like, okay, I'm going to cook and you play for 20 minutes. I'm going to go over here, a little bit of quiet time, but you can ask some questions, ask them to tell you about it. That conversation really helps engage them with it. And your interest and showing interest makes them more engaged with the subject. It makes them care more about it.
All right. Thank you so much. We are already about to be closing in, as I will try to answer as many questions, or at least lend you the mic to answer as many questions as possible. Maybe just before we do so, maybe just I want to do maybe a refresher or recap of what's coming up from you guys. I think Jose Luis, you mentioned earlier that you're working with Lara Rangel on a book project for Spain on how to use the Discovery Tour as a history topic. Is that all right?
Yes, that's right. And we are very honored to have you on the team.
Thank you very much. Adam Dubé, I should also congratulate you, I think, on your nomination as the Associate Dean of the Faculty of Education at McGill. Same with you. So you're still working on the curriculum guides on how to use Discovery Tours with Robin Sharma and Shu Chu. So that should be coming, I guess, pretty soon. We can expect that also.
Yeah, and I also saw a question here in the chat about, like, how can someone create their own curriculum guide? One of the things that we did with this is that we, Robin and Shu, spoke with other individuals who had developed these, like Jose Luis and Judith, right? So there's not a lot of materials for how to do this, like how to create your own guides for things. Right, so there's some exemplars out there that you can look to, but like when we put ours out there, there's a template, and there's also going to be a book chapter in the future that's going to describe the design process and everything that went into like what's the philosophy behind it, and that's going to be coming out in the future as well. So that could help people make their own guides for other games, say for example.
I'm very personally very excited about this as a project very dear to my heart. And Judith, I guess now you're now enjoying the summer.
Yeah.
For the rest of the summer as a teacher before
Yes.
before jumping back for more history sessions and hopefully some trips to Greece in the future.
Hopefully. Well, it will be more normal this year, and hopefully I'll get the chance to make this project again. So my students can play the game for the 15 classes it was supposed to be at first. So hopefully.
All right.
If not, you could use the Division, which is the setting I was using during the pandemics.
Yes. Yeah, good.
That's true.
There's a post-apocalyptic,
Very fit subject, right?
Totally.
But that maybe I can bring me to one of the questions that was in the chat, which is I guess about and we talked a little bit about it, but regarding analytics or criticism of media engagement. So there's this question about accuracy of buildings and locations that are inherited from Assassin's Creed, but that are put through the Discovery Tour experience. So is this a subject that you're targeting either into high school or into university in terms of representation on how video games are not an accurate portrait of history? Is this a discussion that you have with your students or the future teachers that will be maybe using these games in the classroom? Maybe Adam, if you have an answer for this. Otherwise, Judith, please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, so the way we've talked about this, the way researchers look at it, is that there are inaccuracies in games, and just like within film. And one of the things that you can look at that is like there's a potential for students to learn the wrong thing, to gain the idea that a building is in a specific place. But alternatively, what you could frame it as a teacher, and this is where it comes from, like, okay, how am I going to use this tool in my class? It's like you can have conversations in class about the historical period, have them play the game, and then them have to go, okay, what do you notice that's different? What is inaccurate? Say, for example, in that process of going, okay, what is different? What has changed? Why might that be the case? And this gets them thinking like historians, kind of evaluating evidence and searching it out and thinking more reflectively and deeply than just consuming the content. And so that's an important thing with, especially with games that are so complex, like one that's set in the Discovery Tour, where these very complex worlds that have to be built. Is that not every single little item in that thing is like a snapshot from some museum artifact, right? It had to be created. So that's an interesting discussion to have with students, that it's like, okay, these things aren't complete authentic depictions of history, and then use that as an opportunity to have more interesting in-depth discussions with students. And so that's what I would say in terms of like the inaccuracies that do exist within them. And I've played the Assassin's Creed games, the Discovery Tours, and in the games themselves, there's even text where it says like, well, you're looking at this. It doesn't look like this in the real world. Like there's actual blurbs of text where like it'll describe in the game, like, well, the real space wasn't located here, or this tower wasn't here. That's actually in the game itself where it talks about this, right? It gives opportunities for students to think about that, and an opportunity that maybe doesn't exist, say, if you're just consuming it themselves. Without that teacher guide to get them to reflect.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what we were hoping, at least as game developers, that this could be a meaningful tool in the hands of teachers. In addition to the content itself. So the game might say that, for instance, the statue of Athena Promachos was 10 meters high, and when you look at it in the game and you're actually climbing it, it feels more like it's 50 meters high. Yeah. So we do give some information, but I think we really hope that teachers would also use this opportunity to talk more largely about video games or media in general.
Maxime, if you allow me, I mean, just to use some examples on measuring the size of a status and so on, this was one of the activities that we planned for our guide, is to do some physics lessons using the leap of faith from the Athena statue or other buildings, just to measure which is the acceleration or which is the speed, and then the coefficient of flexiousness of when you fall using this leap of faith. So just to use resources for the history class that could be used for other subjects like physics.
So how big was the real impact of the leap of faith? That's the answer for that question.
I think the consequence was pretty much always the same. Judith,
it's better to save the game before.
Exactly. I do have one burning question for you, Judith, if you allow me to skip to another one with bearing the time in mind. Do you have any tips on encouraging non-gaming teachers to invest into this activity?
You have to want it. Okay, it has. You have to be motivated. You're not doing it for others. You're doing it for yourself. This is what motivated me. You know, I want my students to love history because I really love history. I want my students to come in class and have fun. And not just be sitting there and just, still listening for the same classes and notions and everything. So it takes time, but you have to have fun while doing it, And so, I did it for myself because I wanted a new project. I wanted something that when I was going to school in the morning and seeing my kids, that I knew I would have fun, and I knew they will have fun. And so it's just, it takes time. But this is why what Adam and Jose are doing is really, really important, because I know I took a lot of my weekends, playing and building all the guides and everything. But, it's like it will help other teachers do the same and take this leap of faith, and trying these games if they get supported. If they know that at least they have a base, at least they have something to refer to. So you have to do it for yourself first. You have to believe in it.
Definitely, it all comes from the heart. As a historian, I think I can very easily relate to that. Thank you so much. For all of you, I think we will be closing in on this session. I think for Jose Luis, Adam, Judith, you have the information on the Games for Change webpage, on the presenters, to find ways to contact you should the audience want to reach out to you. Again, thank you so much for your inputs and for your passion into doing what you're doing. I would be very happy to be one of your students if I was a little younger, or if I didn't want to go to university again. Again, I look forward to your work in the future with the Discover Tour and with other video games. Thank you for your passion and have a wonderful day. And thank you for the audience as well.